I am very proud that someone who is the first time in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia, we have a constitutional, conservative activist running to serve us. We have someone who's not afraid to stand up for Virginia. We have someone who's not afraid to tell the federal government, get out. Yeah. This is our state. One thing I told a group of Tea Party folks the other night when I was at a meeting, I said, Ken Cuccinelli was Tea Party before there was a Tea Party. Okay? Fighting for our rights here in Virginia. We now all see the Tea Party flags everywhere. But I remember when I got my first bumper sticker for Cuccinelli for Attorney General, and it had the Don't Tread on Me flag. And guess what? It's still over there on my car. Okay? We have someone who can unite us and help bring our state forward. Create the things that we need. We need jobs. We need economies to grow. We need someone very much so to defend the coal miners in Southwest Virginia. We need someone who knows that Northern Virginia only has 28% of the people, but guess what? About 78 cents of every tax dollar we send to Richmond doesn't come back here. And he knows we need our fair share here in Northern Virginia. And he will fight for that as our governor. Now, I want you all to give him a round of applause to let him know he will be our next governor.
Well, good afternoon. And it is a good afternoon. It is great to see so many folks here on such a beautiful day, and isn't that appropriate on Constitution Day? I'll tell you what, you know, we joke about the Democrats every day is April 15th, and that's their favorite day. Well, if I'm governor, every day is going to be Constitution Day. We're going to honor and respect the founding document on which this country was built every single day. And we need governments to do that across the country. Now, Suzanne mentioned sort of my grassroots background, and many of you helped me win races in Fairfax. You came across county lines and Senate lines to help us win while we were being outspent. We have an unusual track record in that regard. It's not a goal, we just always seem to be outspent, and this race is no different. But in that '09 race, where we talked about what looked at that time to be the impending threats to our liberties and to our Constitution that was coming from the federal government. And we talked about the fact that we needed to push back, that Virginia was an extremely appropriate place to be doing that from, since it all started here. Patrick Henry, James Madison, George Mason, and fighting for it all, George Washington, and of course Thomas Jefferson. We have an awful lot of history to point to in the building of the foundation of what became the greatest nation in the history of the world. And those principles that they built this nation on are eternal and universal. They apply everywhere, all the time. That's right. They apply as much in 2013 as they did in 1776. And there are people and what they've done over the years, that foundation has done for us over the years, is not itself make America great. It unleashed America's greatest resource, Americans, to be great. And that is still the direction we need to go. It is why we believe in limited government. Get government out of the way, and you will watch America's economy explode. And the same is true in Virginia. The principles apply in states as much as they do across the country. I don't think we need to import that into Richmond. And a complete lack of respect for the notion that limited government is the right way to go. There's a reason that we focus on this in Virginia, maybe more than some other places. We have the history to draw from. And it's important to remember that history. It's worked, folks. It works. It works. When we advance tax policies, where we talk about lowering marginal tax rates, that's limiting government. That's the real-world application of limited government. When we talk about letting children in failing schools have a chance to go somewhere else, that's giving them opportunity and choices to actually pursue happiness, to meaningfully pursue happiness.
That's justice.
It is justice. And it immediate response was to start attacking us on that point. You know, we've got all these left-wing groups coming in. We got the radical environmentalists. We got the unions have spent now over $2 million. Planned Parenthood is in here. Now comes the NEA. They cannot tolerate giving parents control of their children's own education. They can't tolerate it. But that is a course consistent with the first principles of our country. You know, we just passed the 50th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech, and if you haven't watched it, you should. It's one of the most incredible speeches ever given, ever. And in it, of course, Dr. King was focusing on the denial of voting rights to African Americans. And he was talking about opportunity. And he talked about that most famous sentence of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And he called that our national creed. And I think it's a spectacular name for it. It's the bar for our nation, and it's the bar for our state. It's the bar that we're to try to get over. But it's perfection on the level of government. So we know we can never reach it. But we're always called, always called to pursue it. And a child in Virginia, a child in Petersburg, trapped in the boundaries of a failing school, can't pursue happiness if they can't get a decent education. And right now, their own government blocks them from alternatives that would allow them to pursue happiness. We don't promise outcomes in this country. Some people haven't gotten the memo on that in government, but we don't promise outcomes. We promise opportunity. Opportunity. And this is a classic example where we can expand and make real the promise of opportunity in government policy, that being school choice. On issues like energy, it is night and day between me and my opponent. And Suzanne mentioned fighting for folks in coal mines in Southwest Virginia. You bet we need to do that. You bet we need to do that. We cannot have a governor of Virginia who won't defend the people of Southwest Virginia. But it affects us all. It affects us all. I tell people when we filed that first case against the EPA that focused on energy and food production and other things, I said, look, if you don't eat or use electricity, don't worry about it. It doesn't affect you. But it does for all of us. These principled fights have real-world consequences. And And I want to ask all of you for the next 49 days to help me deliver the message about those real-world consequences of the principles that we have built this campaign and all of my campaigns upon, which, as close as we can do it, are the first principles of this country. We'll never get it exactly right, but we will always strive to get it as right as we possibly can. And we need your help to do that. We need your help to do that. Now, I appreciate, and unfortunately we're going to have lots of opportunities in the future with this administration to continue to need to push back. And I'll just give you one example. The case we won with the EPA earlier this year, you all know about it. Fairfax County Democrat Board of Supervisors was my co-plaintiff. In the category of you know it's bad when, even the Democrat Board of Supervisors of Fairfax County knew they had to join us to sue the EPA. Well, we won that case, but the only reason we could bring it, my client was VDOT, and VDOT doesn't work for the Attorney General. VDOT works for the governor. Does anyone think that a Governor McAuliffe would have approved that case 3.5 months before an election day? No way, but Governor McDonnell did. He did, and we went on to win and save the taxpayers of Fairfax County and Virginia about $250 million, and more important than that, we held the federal government within the boundaries of the rule of law. I am so glad to see so many of you here, and of course, if you can get out on a Tuesday for an hour, maybe on Wednesday you could make some phone calls in here for an hour at lunch. We'll feed you. We'll feed you, and we don't mind if you talk to people with their mouth full while you're on the phone. That's okay. It's one time. That's okay. And we're doing door knocking every day, but especially on Saturdays. Especially on Saturdays, we are being outspent pretty badly and not very truthfully. If you own a television, you know that.
I'm shocked.
Yes, I'm shocked too. But the way we have always overcome that is people like you who share my commitment to first principles, coming out and talking to one neighbor at a time, whether it's at work, whether it's at church, whether it's in your community groups, or as we organize it here, going door to door. We gotta win Loudon. We gotta win Loudon. We gotta fight hard in Fairfax. I grew up here. I live in Prince William now. We have got to make Northern Virginia a battleground for first principles in this race. So please, if you can't do it during the week, please join us this weekend. Every Saturday we're doing large door knocks, and we need your help morning and afternoon. So please join in on that. Now, having said that, it is my pleasure to introduce a guy who, and now you know what it took to get him out of the bunker, Constitution Day. Constitution Day, who is literally, I think it may be accurate to say that he is the leading voice for constitutional principles